Okay, it's time to commit. 2024 is the year for prioritizing yourself. Begin your new smile journey with Byte, and you could start seeing results in just 2 to 3 weeks. Just order your at-home impression kit today for only $14.95 at Byte.com. Byte Clear aligners are doctor-directed and delivered to your door. Treatment costs thousands less than braces. Plus, they offer financing options, accept eligible insurance, and you can pay with your HSA FSA. Get 80% off your impression kit when you use code WONDERY at Byte.com. That's BYTE.com. Start your confidence journey today with Byte.
When you pick up some scratches, cause you want a fun break, the playful way you scratch is the next choice you should make. You can make your dog's leg kick and scratch with that. You could even grab a laser pointer and use your cat. You can build yourself a homemade scratching machine or use a piece from your chess set. Go ahead, grab the queen. Scratch like a DJ with your record player. A cactus could scratch off that scratchable layer. Cause when it comes to scratching, there's a million playful ways. Thanks to scratchers from the California Lottery, a little play can make your day.
Please play responsibly. Must be 18 years or older to purchase, play, or claim.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Somebody please think of the Somebody please think of the children!
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
And each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Devin Das. He is a writer, producer, and actor whose darkly satirical film Keeping Company is releasing tomorrow. And his new film, Wes Schlagenhoff is Dying, is premiering at Tribeca. Welcome to the show. Did I butcher that, or did I get it kind of remotely correct?
I will say, you got it exactly correct. I think you said Schlagenhoff, and
okay, cool.
That is exactly how you say his name, and we cannot wait for people to go like they're going to destroy his name, and it's going to be so funny to us. I mean, that's why we kept his last name in it. It's so funny. It's terrible.
I can't wait to talk to you about your films, but let's bring it back to the very beginning. How did you get introduced to horror?
Oh, yes. I've been so excited for you to ask me this question. Listening to this podcast for a while, I'm like, I can't wait for them to ask me. My intro to horror is not even film or games or, it's my family. And that sounds so fucked up. It's not as fucked up as I dropped that like it was a big bomb. What it is I come from a family, my mom's side in particular. My mom is the oldest of 5, and her siblings are very close. They grew up very close knit together because they moved together a bunch as kids or whatever. So my aunts are also they raised me in part with my mom. All of them are the reason I love horror and thriller, because they love horror and thriller films, but there's nothing they love more than spooking each other. So growing up as a kid at a very young age, probably too young of an age, it's crazy that I'm a stable person. But like, I'll even tell you some of the scary stories that aren't even that scary anymore, but that like scared the hell out of me as a kid. But they would like literally like also my Aunt Pam would take me down into the basement of my grandmother's house, like as a little kid, and she'd, like carry me in her arms. I'm like, whatever, 3 or 4, but I remember this shit because it scared the hell out of me. And she had this. This is like the main thing that I'm like, oh, this is what instilled it in me. But she had this, and I don't know why, but she had this puppet on a stick. I don't even know how to describe it. It was so fucked up. It was so and it's not like it had a name or it wasn't like Mr. This or something like that. It was just a fucking puppet on a stick. I don't know where it came from. And now that we're talking about this, I actually need to bring this up to my aunt and be like, where the fuck did that thing come from? Why did you have it? What was it? But it was this puppet on a stick. It was like almost, I think it was like an owl, like a black owl or something, but like it was not just like an animal. It felt very creature-esque on a stick. And she knew I fucking hated it. So she would pick me up and take the puppet and be like, we're going to go into the basement. And I'd be like, no, stop. It was like a game to her, and I think like when I was like a really young kid, like I think like my younger aunts, they were like in their mid to late 20s, So it's like,
I had a similar experience because my aunts and uncles were like 10 when I was born. My youngest aunt and uncle, so they treated me like a sibling.
Yeah.
And they love to fuck with you, and they think that you're just a little sibling.
That's what it was, dude. Like, it was one of those things where, as a kid, I was like, "Oh my god, this is like growing up. I loved them. I was so close to them. I weirdly, I'm like, I knew that they would protect me, even though they scared the shit out of me, But
right.
like. Yeah. But like as I've gotten and become an adult, I'm like, oh, they were kids too. I'm older than they were. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, oh, they were just fucking with me, and I'll probably do that with like nieces and nephews that I, you know what I mean? But anyways, so like that's like one thing. Like she would take me in the basement with it, and I'd start yelling, screaming, "No, stop!" Like please, like stop. And that was like, God, it's seared in my brain, and it was terrified the shit out of me. But it instilled this like love for feeling scared. Like I love haunted houses, and so like I love to go to like a haunted hayride where like things jump out at you, and like. It like makes me weirdly feel like a kid again, It just like I love it. It's one of those things where they instilled that, and then it was just like storytelling amongst family. Like I come from a pretty big or like a decent sized Indian family, and like it's very tight knit, and we would just sit around like until late at night. Like my family are such night birds, so we would just like stay up late, tell stories, watch movies, whatever. And so like horror was just, once I started watching movies, which wasn't soon after that, once I started watching movies, it was like I loved horror and thriller films. Like my family loves them. They love to be scared. They love mystery and being on the edge of your seat. And it just got instilled in me like right away. And I was watching movies way too soon, like certain movies like way too soon. I know you've had other guests in the past that have said the same thing where it's like, oh, they were watching movies that they shouldn't have been watching, but like, The Silence of the Lambs, watching that at like probably 6 years old.
Whoa. Which
is fucking dark. Like thinking about it now is like dark. It's crazy.
That's a heavy one.
But like even at the same time, like do you even totally get what's going on? It's because like
no,
you get it sort of, but at the same time, there's so much like kind of big things happening that I feel like at that age you're like, I cannot truly conceptualize what is happening in front of me, but it's kind of weird.
I think most of it washes over you, but what resonates, I think, is truly the feeling it instills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just know, because visually and the music and obviously visually, if there's gore or any sort of violence or whatever, it's fucked up. Like, so I think like even if I definitely didn't know the nuances of that film, or any horror through. I'm trying to think of like some other one. Like, I mean, what's really funny is, and I almost picked this for the episode, but like Children of the Corn, like just watching like films where like there was a lot of gore. At least I remember there being a lot of gore in that movie. I haven't seen that one in a while, but But like things where I was like, oh God, like my family didn't think twice about it because they were just like, oh, we're all together just watching it, and this is what we like to watch. It's so funny to me. Like there were no limitations on it. And also, last thing I'll say though is like, my mom is a psychologist. Was a psychologist. She's retired now, but for 35 years in correctional facilities.
Oh wow! So
she was a psychologist for inmates in maximum and medium security prisons. Wow. And it's
holy shit.
Yeah, heavy stuff. But like, and she did it out of the passion of wanting to actually rehabilitate people. Which our prison system doesn't do that whatsoever, and
not interested.
And as not interested, not at all, because it doesn't pay. But she, for better or for worse, like she is obsessed with human psychology, which I think, is obviously what so much horror and thriller is derived from. And I think I'm very much like her in that sense, I think.
That's so interesting. Thanks about your mom, though, because I literally the other day was thinking, what's it like? I don't know why. I was like, what's it like to be a prison psychiatrist? Like, I know it's so weird for me to randomly think about that, but I saw something on TikTok about it, and I was like, huh. So that's very weird that happened, but wow.
She had some pretty fucking crazy experiences for sure. And she's
I love that she watches horror movies still. Like she just is like, oh fuck yeah.
Oh, she loves them. She loves horror films. Like there's nothing too strange or crazy for her or my family in general to watch. Like almost the crazier the better. It's really weird. I don't know where it comes from for them either.
So what are some of like your family favorites together? I wonder what yours are, but I'm also very curious like what your family likes to watch together, or like their favorite kind of that. Yeah.
That's a great question. Like I remember, one of them was The Bone Collector was a big one.
Wow. Oh yeah.
I think I was about, I forget exactly what year that came out, but I'm pretty sure I was like somewhere between 8 and 10 when that film came out, when The Bone Collector came out. Which is still pretty young, like, to watch
99.
that movie. 90. Okay, so I was 10. And that's still pretty young to watch a movie. Like, that movie's pretty dark, and, like, I don't know if it holds up. But, like, that was, like, a big one. Oh, you know what was a big one? Seven. Seven was a big one.
Okay, so I see what your family likes.
It's psychological thrillers. Like, anything with a serial killer, anything with... it was always more so. Yeah, wow. Now that we're talking about this, I'm like, yeah, it was less like ghost and ghouls, and it was more like psychological,
the horrors
like
of man.
It was the horrors of man. Like it really, truly was like, how fucked up are people? Like at the core. Oh, another one. Oh fuck, what was it called? Well, I think there was Skeleton Key, right? You guys remember Skeleton Key?
Yeah, the Kate Hudson one, right? Where she's
that's not the one though. Oh, the one with The Others, I think is what it was.
With Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman. That one. And by the way, I don't know if any of these hold up, but I just remember as a kid watching all of these. Does it? Oh, okay. See, now that I know the twist of that movie, though, I'm like, oh, am I going to enjoy it? But I should rewatch that one. Wow, I'm listing a lot of movies I probably could have thrown in as my movie for us. It's so funny the movie we are going to talk about compared to these. Yeah, a lot of psychological thrillers. The Others was one. I remember just that one scared the shit out of me.
So you watched a lot of movies as a family. Were you a scared kid growing up? Were you a scaredy cat watching all of these, or?
What a great question. Yes, but also again, it was such a thrill to me. It's okay. The other thing that I love to equate this to is how people love to go on roller coasters for the thrill. Yep. Mm-hmm. I fucking hate roller coasters. I don't go on roller coasters. I hate the feeling of my stomach dropping or whatever, but you make me sit in a dark room and watch a terrifying movie by myself in an empty home. I'll do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? To me, that's my roller coaster and I love it. So growing up, I would be terrified. I have memories of well, funny to even bring up Children of the Corn once again, but I think that movie, God, I was like 5 when I watched that movie. Or no,
wow.
I was maybe 7. I was 7 because I remember we were in a new house that we had just moved into. I was 7 years old watching Children of the Corn, and I think that's probably pretty intense for a 7-year-old. But yeah. I remember going to the bathroom, and this would happen with a lot of movies, but I just remember with that one in particular, going to the bathroom. I was like, can you pause it? I have to go to the bathroom. And just going to the bathroom, looking at myself in the mirror and telling myself, it's okay because you're a kid.
Oh.
Like, I was fucking terrified. I was terrified, but I was like, it's okay. You're safe because you're a kid.
Because you're a kid. Wow. I mean, true.
But to answer your question, I was terrified, but I loved it.
But you loved it.
But I loved it. But like, I would get scared. Like, I would, if I had to like going to bed later that night was not easy. Like, you know what I mean?
Do you still get scared now as an adult?
Yes. Short answer, yes. And I love it. Part of it is me knowing that I'm doing it to myself. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm leaning into it where I'm like, oh, dude, stop doing this to yourself. Like no joke. The Conjuring, I think, is one of the most terrifying modern horror films, in my opinion, just the way it was crafted.
It is crafted really well. I love the play of dark and there's so many.
The clapping. Oh my God. I just think the way it was crafted is so spine tingling and done so well. So that movie, I referenced that movie because I introduced, it's so funny, my wife is not a horror thriller fan, but she is now because of me. She's like, okay, can we watch Insidious? And then we watched Insidious, and she's like, okay, now we have to watch Insidious 2 tomorrow night. And I'm like, okay, if you want to. It's so funny.
And Insidious scared the shit out of me. Like,
it scared the shit out of me.
Fucking terrifying.
Good.
Yeah, we went on a binge, like, I think during COVID, like, you know, I think a year ago, we went on a binge watching, like, for me, it was rewatching a lot of these, but like her being like, well, I haven't seen these yet. And so it was a lot of fun. So we watched The Conjuring one night, and we ended up putting it on late. I think it ended around midnight. And, you know, we're going to bed, and I like went to the bathroom, and I'm walking down my hall, and I'm not in like a super big apartment, but big enough for me to like have this hallway from my bathroom to my door. And I remember just being like, oh, fuck. I was just like, I looked into the dark living room, and I was just like, just don't look in there. Just don't fucking look in there. And just like, I just literally tell myself, don't look there, and just like gun it. Do what you got to do and get out. Like, and I get scared sometimes. Even if the movie has nothing to do with like mirrors, I like don't look in a mirror at night, like after watching a scary movie. I get afraid something's going to pop up behind me.
I mean, it's jump scare 101 for that.
101 or outside the window. I'm like, I don't look outside.
The window I hate. I can't do the window. The
windows terrify me.
I was just thinking about this because I wear contacts and I am completely blind when I don't have them in. And I always think about the walk from like my bathroom into my room, and I'm like, I can't see if anything's going to happen. So like, I'm just like, you know, something could be literally standing to the side of me, and I'd be like, well, I'm just going to walk past it because I can't see it.
Okay.
Blessing and a curse.
Let me share my secret shame here with everybody. So
oh, yes, please.
I just like expose myself on this podcast all the time. It's really quite therapeutic.
I love it.
I'm not as scared of the dark as I used to be, but I'm still scared of the dark. Yes, I am scared of the dark. A grown woman who writes about horror movies for a living is scared of the dark. I admit that.
You watch some pretty nasty shit too.
I do. I watch a lot of fucked up shit, but I've always been scared of the dark since I was a kid, and so I would wear my glasses to sleep so I could wake up and see. And I still do that because I forget to take them off out of habit. I'm not worried about that anymore, for real, but I still fall asleep with them on because I have to have them on, and I have to know they're right there in case something wakes me up in the night. I was so paranoid for the longest time about it. And my prescription is so bad that I just like can't see shit.
Same.
So not having your glasses is like, oh my God, that would like give me a fucking heart attack. I would shit out my spine. Anyway, sorry.
Shit out your spine. I can fully relate because I'm blind as a bat too. Love that we're all in the same boat here. But it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, I know that if there were a zombie apocalypse, I'm one of the first to go. My glasses get stepped on. I'm done. I'm one of those.
I'm Twilight Zone boy. When your glasses shatter and you're like,
you're done. We're bottom of the food chain. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
We're scavenging for contacts. We're like trying to find anything. Yeah, like
there's just no way. Yeah, so
This is why I have 6 pairs of glasses, all ordered cheaply from the internet, so I'll always have a backup.
You'll be good. I love it.
But so you talked about The Conjuring being like something that scared you recently, but are there any other films that have really gotten to you that you've seen as of late?
Yeah, I mean, Conjuring, Insidious, those movies really get to me under my skin. Hereditary was one that just like got fully under my skin. Like, I mean, Midsommar didn't even do it to me the same way. That opening of Midsommar did, that opening. I could just talk about that opening for an hour. It was so gnarly. But the Hereditary was definitely one.
Take a drink, listeners.
Everyone says Hereditary. Everyone says Hereditary.
It's just I know saying it is cliche at this point because it's
seriously, it's on my list of movies that scared me as an adult.
Too.
Like it's
and it's just how it's crafted. I mean, and the performances. It's like it's just God, that one's. But you know what also I will say about Hereditary? I also list that as one of, because I saw that in the theaters, 2018 I think it came out. I saw that in theaters and I saw it like midday, so there's like maybe 5 other people in the theater. It's one of the biggest laughs that I have had in a movie recently because I was so uncomfortable when she's up in the ceiling. And she's like floating away, but like once you realize she's there up in the corner of the ceiling, I was so like terrified and also like I just laughed out loud. And it was like me and 5 other people, and I'm the only one. I laughed. I was like laughing out
and
loud.
They're like, "Is this man okay?
Is this guy okay? This guy thinks this is funny." But I laughed because I was so uncomfortable. But then I was also like, "It's fucking hysterical to me." I can't describe why, but it was. I mean, I can. It's just so off.
It's so ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous. And then she starts swimming away, and I was like, okay, all right. He hit the joke. Yeah, actually.
I laughed when she was sawing her head off, which is not funny, but I think just like I think it's just like the culmination of everything, and you're just like
the tension.
What?
It's so
you can't help but like that's you scream or you laugh, and you're just like, this is just too much for my brain to process in this moment.
Yeah. It's like weirdly a moment of levity because there's just so much going on, and you're like, wow, this is now funny. It's so fucked up.
But so let's pivot to the scary stuff that you are working on really quick, because you have a movie that is coming out called Keeping Company. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about Keeping Company?
Sure. Yes. Keeping Company is a social satire that follows a couple of insurance men who go knocking on the wrong door. And next thing they know, they find themselves trapped inside of a stranger's basement, a serial killer's basement. And it's just a movie that begs the question of, can you tell the difference between ruthless corporate salesmen and vicious suburban serial killers? So it's really just like an offbeat, eccentric satire that looks to skewer our capitalism and our obsession with profits in this country and around the world. Honestly, I think it's much more a global thing than anything. And just sort of, how the rich profit off of the poor, and how we look at humans as being more so these machines rather than actual beings, to generate productivity, and what does it all mean? Like, what does it mean for you as a person and your own value, if you don't have a high paying job, or you're not bringing in a ton of money or whatever, like all these social expectations and classist norms. Sorry, my dog is still yapping. Really, it's like a lot of heavy themes and sentiments that we just are like trying to skewer with comedy. And like we brought in horror elements because both Josh Wallace, the director, and myself, who, we wrote it together, we were just looking to have fun with like all of these like kind of heavy themes. It was Trump era at that time, but I don't think anything, I think it's more relevant than ever. And, you know, it's like, you know, you have your Reagan era films that try to skewer, you know, American capitalism and culture at that time. And it's just like, I think, you know, for us, this movie was a product of the time and still is. And especially our generation, it's like, you know, I think we're all millennials here, right? Like, I think it's like,
I'm an elder millennial, but I'm still a millennial.
Hey, you're still a part of it, right? But we've been fucked from the beginning. I think we're the last generation to be like sold the lie. And then, but very quickly did we have it all start to like unravel. Like, you know, I mean, I just think it's like, it's a product of us being like, God, this is all fucking bullshit. Like, why do we put value on productivity and profit the way that we do? And it's like, we could have such a better, more fulfilled society. And so the movie doesn't provide any answers to what we should be doing next. Our goal, I should make that very clear, because then I'm just going to sound like this pretentious artist who didn't actually accomplish his goal. Our goal, though, was we were like, let's make a movie that, you know, kind of plays with narrative in a way that's like not we didn't want the typical narrative of like happy ending and here's how things got solved. It was more so like, let's hold a mirror to people. Yeah. Let's make the audience reflect upon why characters made the decisions that they made, why we made decisions for characters and story and structure that we did. You know, it's like, why did we choose to do that? We didn't just do that. We didn't just try to make a movie. You know, it's definitely going to be something that people either hate or love because they're not used to movies ending in a certain way that, you know, that we ended up going with or whatever. But like, you know, it's all to challenge in that sense.
Yeah. Well, so I saw this last year when it hit Panic Fest and fell in love with it, rewatched it again in prep for the show, still fell in love with it. And what I really keyed on this last time was and it's sort of what you're talking about. There's a lot of heady type stuff going on, but then it's very silly and funny and satirical. But what I was thinking about at this time is like, it's really a Venn diagram of different facets of capitalism, because you have like the corporate Venn diagram going on. You have like the sort of like old, rich, entitled family that keeps passing on their lineage and fucking over the poor people that's in there. And then you have on this other end, you have like the political side of the campaigner who laughing hysterically as he's literally shooing away.
And his name is Glenn Gary.
Yeah,
I mean, come on now.
Really on the nose with that one.
but I love how all these like concentric circles are like feeding into each other. In the middle is this movie, because it does tackle everything wrong with capitalism from different perspectives, and yet it's focused on a very odd couple pairing of insurance agents and the shit they get caught up in.
And the insurance company is called Cast Insurance, and it's a pyramid. I was like, I love that it's like those things, especially with like the stickers, it says Cast Insurance at the end. I was like, oh my God, it's just so funny. And it's so obvious, but that's why it works.
I'm so happy to hear all of that, because I think, well, you guys grabbed everything. You took everything that we were going for, which is it's a relief, because I don't think everyone will. And because again, I think they're gonna, you know, I think people are so used to being spoon fed certain things, you know, like you said, it is so obvious. Like we tried to kind of sort of be like, listen, we're not trying to be so nuanced here, but we did think we were like, let's also make it like a film that if you watch a second time around, you're going to go, okay, I catch this now a little bit better, or I understand the layering here a little bit better. So that was our goal, and it's really cool to it's just cool to know that we accomplished it, at least in some sense. So yeah, that was what we were all going for. And like Terry, like you were saying, like all those different, like it being a Venn diagram of all those different aspects coming together, and like that was very much our intention, was like we wanted to explore, or at least showcase through different characters and their arcs, these different, you know, it's not just the people at the top that are making this wheel go round. Sure, they're certainly, you know, puppeteering a lot of things, but it also takes people that are striving to be to have a seat at the table. You know, I think
Right.
we always talk about culturally, you know, and when it comes to many different versions of diversity, even where it's like talking about having a seat at the table, and it's like, yes, that I mean, I'm a person of color. I think that yes, it's like you do want more representation because it helps build self-esteem in people. It helps, you know, in younger generations. It's important, but it is also like, what table are we trying to get a seat at?
Right.
You know what I mean? And what does it perpetuate? Because it's, at the end of the day, no matter what, if you're playing into a system that furthers exploitation, and what's it gonna accomplish? It's not, you know, at the end of the day, you might end up becoming the villain, right? Like you don't, and I'm not saying that is always the case. I'm not saying that the good can't be done.
No, but I do think that when you are a minority, whether that's because of race, gender, sexual orientation, whatever the case is, you're always fighting for scraps to be at that big person's table, and so the system pits you against each other.
Yes.
So it pits queer people against queer people, and it POC against POC and women against women to get that one little seat that maybe they can get up there
that only one of us can have.
Yeah,
it's a false ideal, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's really is 1 in a million for that reason. It really is a rigged game for that reason, and it becomes a game of divide and conquer, and it really is like where our identities as people, no matter what you identify as, becomes a weapon against you, because then it's like, well, yeah, I want to focus on my identity, and then it just allows for your identity to become a point of contention for somebody else who's like, but what about me? And it like becomes, it's like, no, what about all of us who are all getting played? You know what I mean? And and collectivism is just so hard, and it is the answer, but it's just like, you know. Well,
and I love that moment. Without getting into spoilers, there's a moment in the film where your character and Noah could be working together to get out of it. But Noah. He's such a sweet guy.
Yes, played by Ahmed Barucha, who is basically, he playing a heightened version of himself. He's the sweetest guy ever. Yeah.
He seems so sweet. But there's a moment where that collectivism, that kind of joining together could work, and it doesn't, because the system again is pitting the two of you against each other. Yeah. And that's why I think, honestly, and I would say this even if you weren't here, I think this movie is so smart, and I love the intricate plotting in terms of all these different plot threads that it's like they feel so disparate, and yet they all seem to come together in a very violent and bloody ending. And I love it. I love movies that are plotted like this. This is my jam.
This is, I already told you this. This means so much to me to hear that, to my indie filmmaking heart. Josh and I made a movie that we just wanted to watch. Like, that was our goal. We were like, I think it's easy to fall into traps of like, well, trying to fit into someone else's box. And for us, we were like, let's just make a fucking movie that we want to watch. I mean, obviously we drew inspiration from lots of different filmmakers and films and that we love, and that we were in some senses trying to copy, of course. I mean, everyone does that. But like, we were like, let's not make our first film, you know, something that feels like, I don't know, that you've just seen a million times before. Yeah. And sure, maybe not everyone's going to love it, but at least it's something that we want to watch and that at least some people will like. And so it's great to know that it is your jam and that it is somebody's jam. like it's great to know that. And it's very exciting.
And also, so this movie comes out the day after this episode drops, and then Tribeca, I believe, is that weekend. And you have a film that is premiering at Tribeca. How wild is that they're both coming out like literally at the same time?
It's very surreal. You know, it's funny because it hasn't really it hasn't hit me yet. Because I've just been so busy getting both of them across the finish line with my teams, my respective teams on each of them. And we've just been like, we're all very excited, but we're all like, also like, oh, we got to deliver this and deliver that, you know, like, but the fact that it's two movies are coming out in the same week that I'm a part of it's just surreal. It's one of those things where it's like, I didn't grow up. I grew up being a film nerd, loving film, you know, loving horror, loving thriller, like I said, with my family and all of that. I didn't grow up with a camera in my hand. I didn't grow up even with a pen in my hand. I didn't really know. I was like, I mean, I still am a bit of a weirdo where I would like talk to myself in the mirror and make up scenarios. So in that sense, it was like, oh, it was always there, but I didn't know what I was doing with it. And here I am after like, 10 years of like having moved out to LA 10 years ago, just like trying to be like, I'm just going to try and figure it out. I don't know how it's going to work out. But I say all of that to just be like, to now have 2 movies coming out the same week. It feels like I didn't do it to prove to anyone else but myself. And it's one of those things where I'm like, oh shit, maybe it's possible. That's like how I feel right now, which is like such it's such an underwhelming thing to tell you. But all I feel is I'm like, for the first time ever, I feel like, okay, maybe it's possible. And so that's like where I'm at. That's how I feel about it.
Hell yeah.
And I don't know. I think there's a lot of people who want to be filmmakers who I know that are really talented and that I don't know that are very talented that want to do indie film. And it's like, or do any sort of film or TV or whatever. And it's just like, it is that thing of like, you got to just go out and do it. But you also just have to like, you have to be also prepared to also not be an artist because there's the business side of it that I didn't know shit about until like 5 years ago. And that shit's crazy too. So it's cool. It's cool to like have learned.
It's a whole other world to learn.
You just got to like jump into it. You just got to jump into it and figure it out. And anyways, it's all possible. I just want the audience to know it's all possible.
Anything is possible. Speaking of anything that is possible, let's talk about the movie you brought today.
Nice transition.
Not as seamless as I thought it was going to be, but that's okay. Devin, what movie did you bring with you today for us to talk about?
I brought 1993's The Good Son.
Oh my god. Okay, so The Good Son, for everybody who has not heard of it, a young boy played by a darling babe, Elijah Wood.
Oh, he's so young and a baby.
And stays with his aunt and uncle and becomes friends with his cousin, played by a baby Macaulay Culkin. Yep. A boy of the same age who shows increasing signs of violent and psychopathic behavior. Devin, why did you pick this movie? Tell us your Scarred for Life tale.
Yes. Okay. God, this movie is... Oh God, I can't wait to hear. Not because I think it's gonna bring me pleasure or anything, but I can't wait to hear your story. You have really set the tone with. I can't wait to hear what your story is. Mine's not okay. All right, The Good Son came out in '93, so I was born in '89, so I was like 4 years old when it came out. I did not see it when I was 4. I saw it, but I'm okay. So I'm not. I've been trying to do for the past few days, trying to do the math of like when did I see it. So this is one of those movies that my mom did not rent from Blockbuster, but she bought from Blockbuster.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I don't, and she had never seen it. I'm pretty sure she had never seen it, but she bought it. So my guess is like, because I also saw that the reviews were pretty bad for it. It probably like went to like a bargain bin pretty quickly. She bought it. And again, it's a psychological thriller that she brought home. And I must have been like 5 or 6 or maybe 7 when I watched this movie. And I have not watched the movie since then, up until a few nights ago for this conversation. But it scarred me because of, I think for a few reasons. But it was seeing kids that, 2 young boys who I was around their age, and I'm seeing all of this deeply fucked up shit happen in the movie because of like these 2 kids like going through it. I think that just really hit me, like resonated with me in a way of like, it just felt very relatable. I don't know. It just felt really relatable where I was like, I'm their age. This could happen to, like, I could meet someone like that, or I could, whatever. But then I think, the movies lean so heavily on the themes of loss and grief and guilt. Yeah. Which by the way, I think it does very well. And I really, it's Elijah Wood loses his mom in the opening of the movie. And I think I thought about it. I think it hit me where it's like, what if I lose my mom? What if I lose anyone I love? This movie really makes you think about like losing the ones that you love and how that, you know, it like really leans into that grief and the blame you put on yourself. And I was a kid. I probably didn't pick up on a ton of the nuances, but I knew that I didn't want anyone I loved to die. And it hit me. I'm like, I just remember feeling such deep sadness from this movie. Like the movie finished and I felt so sad. And the one thing that was seared into my brain was that final iconic end of the movie. The cliff scene seared into my brain. So
just like, holy shit.
It's insane.
On the rocks.
On the rocks. And which, by the way, I think it was executed pretty well, like from a direction point, because like rewatching it, I was like, I'm feeling pretty tense right now. Like I feel like on the edge of my seat. Like visually, this is captivating the way they shot it. I really liked how they shot it actually. But yeah, no, it just left me feeling so deeply sad. And I don't remember much from the time. Like it wasn't like any like big, I hadn't lost anyone in my family around that time. I hadn't like, you know, everything was like pretty peachy, like at that time of my life. Like it was all pretty okay. And this movie just left me feeling torn up, like feeling like it could be my family, you know, like it could, it really hit that emotional core for me, which, you know, it got me good. And plus I was like 7 years old, you know, like I don't think I was much older, right? And I'm like, it's a fucked up movie for a 7-year-old to watch. It's rated R. I shouldn't have been watching it. But, yeah, well, so it's like all of that stuff. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, because earlier when you were talking about the Children of the Corn, you were talking about how you looked in the mirror and is like, I'm a kid, I will be okay.
Yeah.
And this movie is the exact opposite of that. It is saying like, no, if you're a kid, you can still get fucked up. You can still be killed. You can still have to deal with kids that are absolutely horrors towards you. And so it feels dangerous in that regard, I would think.
Yes, I 100%. Like, again, I don't have a ton of memory of like what my actual thoughts were on the movie. I do remember just being like, I am sad. Very sad, and I felt sad, and I felt in danger. Like I literally did. It just felt like I could be in this kind of danger, some way or another. And yeah, it left me feeling torn up. And I didn't watch the movie ever again, because I just truly was like, I don't want to watch that movie. And so I didn't remember much from it other than that last end scene that I really like was like seared into my brain. And rewatching it now, as I was watching it, like scene by scene, I was like, oh, it's this movie. Like it was like weirdly, like I don't know how to describe it. I was like, oh, right, this scene is from this movie. Like like the Mr. Highway shit, and like the well, them standing on the well, and like all of it. Which, by the way, rewatching it now, I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. I am deeply uncomfortable rewatching it. So yeah, that's what it just scarred me by like emotionally, I think. Like it just really in that way.
It's funny to me that you said that you're like, you don't have like specific memories about this movie, because I was 100% convinced I had seen this movie. And I started watching it and I was like, I don't know if I've seen this movie. Here's the thing. I thought in my mind going into this, I was immediately like side like slapped against the face, because like, wait, I thought his mom died and a new mom came in and brought a kid with him. I thought that was the story. I thought that it was like a new kid coming into the house, and I was like, yeah, this is the, you know, the good son, you know, the two families coming together. And so like I'm watching this going, this is not how I remembered this. And like I remember specific scenes coming out, but then I started thinking, you know what, this movie, the trailers for this movie were ubiquitous back in the 90s. And back then it was a time where like, you know, they would be in front of VHS tapes, and unless you got up and hit fast forward or you had your remote and were fast forwarding through it, you watched the trailers for movies. There was no escaping it. And so I don't know if I saw this movie and just completely blinked on it, or if I just saw enough trailers to it that I had what I had of the movie pieced together in my mind, because I don't remember anything about this movie except specific like images that would have been trailer reel material.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. So what did you think of it?
Well, I have a lot of questions. First of all, the title, not the title, but the font for like the opening credits, is it Comic Sans? I was like, what is this font? It's
not Comic Sans, but it's similar. I was staring at it. It's not, but it's got a similar vibe to it. It's got that cartoony vibe where you're like,
well, it kind of gives that kind of like childhood feel to it, like you're watching something that is for kids. Because then, like, this, what is up with this font? Was my question.
That font that's so funny because I feel like it was the same tone as the score of that movie.
Yes.
Oh my God. I was like, is this a joke?
I know.
This movie is so melodramatic, this viewing. It is dripping in like after school special energy. Like melodrama after school special energy is so funny watching it.
It's hysterical.
I'm watching it now. Good
when
God.
I tweeted about watching it, someone replied to me and said that the Barney Fife theme just like got to them. Like, and that's like it's very like, you know, saccharine and sweet, and then it cuts to, you know, him standing in like the Arizona desert that looks like it could be Mars. Like it feels so alien. And then his mom is dying from cancer. I think cancer. And it's just like it goes from this very maudlin, saccharine sweet to like, this shit is dark, and the kid is feeling guilt because he's like, you're not going to die. And it's there's a little bit of a comedy there, I think, because he's like, I will not let you die. And then it cuts to
the funeral.
Look at the ashes like flying in front of his fucking face.
I laughed. I was like, I don't know if this is darkly humorous on purpose, but I'm like, this shit is funny.
It's just like the jump cut from him being like, you're not going to die, and like, haha, your mom's ashes are getting scattered in the desert. You're just like,
I know. There were moments where I was like, and I it's so funny that stuck out to me, and then I was like, okay, they clearly are just trying to get to it. Like they're clearly just trying to like get it moving. I'm sure the edit was way longer, and they're like, come on. There are those moments where you're like, this is hysterical. This is so bad. This like setup is, but once it gets to it, you're sort of like, okay, wait a minute. This is an entirely different movie all of a sudden.
Yeah. And the other thing that immediately, like, I have a couple notes that immediately jumped out to me. The other one is that he decides to drive from Arizona to Maine to drop this kid off. And I'm like, okay, I Google Maps this shit. I was like, that is a 43-hour drive. And he says that he did it in 3 days. I'm like, okay, you were driving for 16 hours every day?
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
That's like something my parents would do. Like, that has been done before in my family. So, like, I actually don't deny that one. I'm not. I think it's dumb, especially, like, you're going to Tokyo, you're driving your fucking Jeep to a goddamn island, and then you're going to go to, like...
It made no... Because I'm like, wait. When he dropped him off, I was like, wait, but doesn't he have to drive back now?
Well, I was like, where's the car going?
Yeah.
I was like,
what?
And the best part though is when Elijah Wood runs out of the truck and then just stands in the sand and it cuts. Like there's no moment of like a sweet father-son moment. It's just him staring into the desert and then cutting to them on the ferry. I was like, they should have just not had this beginning.
It was crazy. I literally exclaimed. I literally sat there and I said, what? Because he just runs out to the desert, they hold for a beat, and then cut to the rushing water of the ocean. Like, I was like, what is happening right now? This is so
is he driving
bad.
To the airport? Nope. He is driving him all the way to Maine.
So bad. It was so dumb. It was just like, it didn't make any sense. Because also, wait a minute. I had another question. Was that his brother? Is that his uncle that he's staying with?
Yeah. I think no, it's the sister, right?
No. Okay. Oh, even worse if that's the case, because so the question I had was, if that's his uncle, or even worse, if that's his aunt, his mom's sister, why weren't they at the funeral? Because he shows up to the house, and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it's been 10 years. And it's like, wait a minute, this whole family stayed back and didn't come to the funeral.
So the uncle did. The uncle went to the funeral.
So but I'm still confused. I'm like, aren't you all family? Why didn't you, like, what's happening right now?
Also, like, no one mentioned the death of the other kid until, like, blasely mentioning the drowning of a child, randomly. I'm like, I feel like that context would probably have been helpful to set up. Like, hey, by the way, like...
Yeah, it didn't... Like thinking about it,
the setup is very confusing. The setup makes zero sense. You're just
I had a ton of questions where I was like, it just feels like they literally, there were so many ways to do it in a clean way. I don't know. The dad didn't have to drive him. It made no difference if the dad drove him or not. If the whole family came to the funeral, the family could have taken him back with them.
Ooh, family road trip with your psycho kid. Oh, that would have been fascinating.
Yeah. My only thought was that it is an 83-minute movie, so maybe they wanted to make sure that it was hitting that 80-minute mark.
For sure.
And so added in a bit more. Like, that's the only thing I can think of. Because, like...
That's a good point.
It has a real... I think the opening of this movie is really bad. I think it gets really interesting once the dynamics are established and they're in Maine. But that opening bit, I was like... I had so many questions. I was just like, I don't... Why are we doing this? Why are we even doing this?
Bad.
It's so bizarre.
It is to its credit, it gets to the new world pretty quickly. But like in that 15 minutes, you're like, what's happening? Where?
I know. I was like, am I remembering this movie correctly? Like, is this the movie that I remember watching as a child?
Yeah. And it's funny too, because during that first 15 minutes, I was like, because I was watching it, a few nights ago for the first time in however long. And I was like, I can't believe I suggested this movie to them. I was like, oh my fucking God. But then as it kept going, I was like, oh, okay. I think there's going to be stuff to talk about.
No, this movie gets really fun, in my opinion. I think there's like, it's a little, I don't know.
What the fuck?
Again, I didn't watch this movie as a kid, I don't think, now. And so, like, for me, it was just like, go fuck each other up.
That's a really great perspective because, and that was like another thing too, rewatching it, what made me laugh, there were moments where you're like, there's these two very young kids saying lines of dialogue as if they are 40-year-old men. Yes. And it was so funny to me. I was like, this is crazy.
Macaulay Culkin whips out the tin of cigarettes and just lights a cigarette. I was rolling. I was watching this today while I was working. I was like, is that Macaulay Culkin just whipping out a cigarette? Like, and he just like passes it to Elijah Wood.
It's so funny. Like that choice of like, we have to start, implying that he's a bad boy or whatever. I'm like, a cigarette.
And he smokes cigarettes.
He's smoking.
What I loved finding out about this, though, is that it was written by Ian McEwan, who probably most known for his book Atonement that became a movie.
Oh.
So the writer of this movie wrote Atonement.
Interesting. What? Wait, now I'm looking.
He also wrote another book I really love. I can't remember the name of it, but he's a really good writer.
He got the Booker Prize for Amsterdam from 1998, and then he wrote The Children Act, Nutshell, Machines Like Me.
Wow.
Yeah, Atonement. And he wrote, and knowing that, there are some very writerly things in this
yes.
that feels like the fact that he lost his mom, the mom lost her son, there's that bond there, there's that dynamic. Yeah. There's the lines of dialogue, like, again, you were talking about Macaulay Culkin acting like a 40-year-old, that like, if I let you go, you think you could fly? Like, no kid's gonna say that.
No. Yeah.
It's very writerly.
It's so writerly. Like, yeah, you're right. Like the dialogue was just like, weirdly though. God, those two. Credit to those two dudes, those two kids, when they were kids, for actually pulling it off in a way where you're like, well, they're good actors. They're actually like, these kids would never talk this way, but yet I am weirdly still very invested by their performances because of how good they were. But the writing was like, oh my God, this is just like, even moments of like Elijah Wood's character as he's starting to lose it and like starting to get a little, like he's like, no one believes me, and it just like all ramps up so fast. He just all of a sudden he like, you won't believe me, you're on his side, and then like you're like, what the fuck? When did this happen? Really quickly.
He starts shoving all the food down the garbage disposal because he's like, they poison. And like I'm watching this and I'm like, I'm both really upset for this child, but also like, how did he, like, I don't know. I feel like kids, it's just a lot of weird emotional reactions for a child in this scenario.
I know. It was just so over the top. And, sorry. My dog's about to start it up again. The other thing, oh God. You know what pissed me off? This is such a, sorry, my dog.
You're fine. Don't worry about it.
What really bothered me was after the food scene, he gets, oh no, Beanie, are you okay?
got the excited coughs / gags.
Okay, what really bothered me was after the food scene, they send him to bed and his food and his clothes are covered in food and he's dirty. And I'm like, don't put him in bed like that. Like, I don't know, that weirdly was a weird thing where I was like, come on, like, what's going on? They're like, that's like, I don't know how to describe it. It like really bothered me. I was like, why that choice?
It's almost
really
abusive.
Bothered. Well, yeah, and then
neglectful.
It also was so fucking weird to me. I get why they did it, but it was so weird where he was like, "Oh my god, you are my mom. You came back as my mom to take care of me." I'm like, one, she's been alive and been your aunt your whole life. You fucking weirdo. Two,
so weird.
What? I don't know. Something about it this time. Like, I understand, like, a kid is grieving and is, like, trying to find someone to latch onto and a mother figure, and, like, obviously it factors into the end, et cetera, et cetera. But something about it was just, like, of course, and a little bit like, ugh.
I'm fully with you on that, where it's like, I know why you're doing this. I know it's going to create tension between the two boys. I know it's good. But, like, it was, like, this weird thing where, like, like Elijah Wood's character just kept saying it, where he's like, she's my mom too. Mm-hmm. Like, and
like that makes him seem like a little bit creepy as well. And
yeah,
I'm like,
where it's like, all
you're
right.
both. Just throw them both in the ocean. I'm sorry, what?
Throw them both in the ocean.
That's terrible. But
that's
reset.
Honestly,
hard reset.
That would have been a crazy ending. Crazier.
I would have laughed.
Oh my god!
This ending ruined me as a kid.
Same. Okay.
This ending made me cry, like hysterically. Like my mom had this on. I think I was 7 or 8. Okay. And my mom had just moved in with a new guy who's my stepdad now, with his son, my stepbrother. And he watched this movie, and boy, oh boy, did this awaken feelings inside of my body and mind that I had never thought about before. Because this is gonna get heavy, sorry y'all, but nothing like that happened with my brother, but I was very much kind of cognizant of the two of us and our relationship to one another and our parents. And there's always been like an issue of favoritism in my family, with my mom favoring me over my stepbrother for lots of reasons. And so I watched this movie and like got into my head about who my mom would choose if that situation was happening.
Oh no.
And then found out this guilt of being like, I'd be the one that my mom would choose.
Oh my god. Wait, this was like in your little kid brain, like feeling all of this, right? Oh,
that's so existential, Mary Beth.
And I was like, oh no, oh god, this is the last thing I want to think about my mom having to pick which one of us to kill. And like that idea of having that happen was so fucked up. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I told you it was fucked up. I told you it was fucked up. But then like I got really upset about like the mom having to choose the kid to kill, and I'd never seen a kid die in a movie before until I saw this movie, and they really show the kid dying, and I was like, holy shit, it's real. And like the idea of, because like my brother, I love my brother, he is like my brother, but like he was a weirdo, and so it was like all of these things in my head, and then it just like all culminated into like an anxiety attack that I did not know was an anxiety attack when I was a kid, because I was like, with my parents. I know,
that's heavy. That's heavy. And to your point, they do show the death.
They do. Which explicitly show the death.
Explicitly, which I didn't remember, and then rewatching it, I was like, "Holy shit!" I remember watching it now. I was like, "Oh shit!" And that kind of like kudos, like as a horror fan, I was like, "Kudos to them."
Yeah, like good job, you killed a kid. No one ever does that.
Admit, I laughed when she let go of Henry. I started cackling.
Oh, I felt
Little
sick.
devil boy falling to his death, and I started laughing.
I felt so ill again. I couldn't. I had like I was watching this, being like, "This is so melodramatic. There's some wild parts," but I still felt nauseous watching this because of like the mind space it put me in from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And the worst part, and the part that has fucked me up forever, and it's not because of my family, is Mr. Highwayman.
Oh,
So
yes,
Mr. Highwayman is this dummy that.
Horrifying Unabomber looking dummy.
That Macaulay Culkin is like, I have a friend, like, let's go play with a friend. And they bring this mannequin to an overpass and then throw the mannequin over the overpass and cause a 10-car pileup. And whenever I drive near an overpass, my ass is looking up to make sure that is not happening. Every overpass for every day of my life since I saw that movie, I will look and check. Because I am terrified that someone is going to do that.
Yeah.
Yes, I still do that now.
That
part stuck with me so hard, like terrified me forever. And I am now always scared of things falling off of overpasses and causing accidents on the highway.
It's funny because, okay, so that scene, the Mr. Highway of it all, is one of the scenes that I just didn't, like, it wasn't seared into my brain the same way, but it's like such a big moment in the movie. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's like, I was like, it's satisfying because you're like, this is a fucked up thing for this kid to do to try and like cause some chaos, right? Like it was like in terms of actions that this kid could take, it was like, oh, that's pretty heightened. So rewatching it, I was like, right. That, like, I had this, I feel like I've been carrying for the past, 25 years or whatever, carrying with me that feeling that you remembered, Mary Beth, like that you had the memory of it. So you look at the overpass, but I forgot about that scene until rewatching it and going like, right, now I remember it. And it brought back this weird feeling I had as a kid. And I'm like, I feel like I've been carrying this feeling for years, not knowing why. And it was just this feeling of like, overpasses are fucked up. Like overpasses there's danger there, you know, and I don't like look at an overpass when I'm driving, but it was like, it reminded me that like there is this weird thing going underneath one feels weird for that reason.
Yep.
And it's like that scene, I gotta say, like I thought that scene was
that scene was
great.
Excellently directed. I thought the RV that slides on its side. It's like
I did laugh where I was like, of course they had the RV to the full on skate, like the first car, like it was just a full on giant RV that flips over. I'm like, drama. It's drama. It's great. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's like it's a very dangerous scene, and I don't know. Also that first scene where the first kill, I guess, was when he kills that dog. I was just like, God, that was heavy for me to watch because I watched it this weekend and a lot of terrible news happened this weekend. And a lot of terrible news, mass shootings and all of that happen fucking all the time, right? And it's just like watching that scene, I was like, ooh, watching this movie now hits a different chord.
Because the age that like he is in that movie, he'd be an adult now.
Yeah, and those behavioral issues are, I mean, it's a very real person, and it's like there's so many things to talk about in that regard, but like rewatching this movie like in modern day and like that character study specifically, like it's hard to watch. It's not enjoyable.
No, it's not at all. And like everyone, I feel like like people joke about The Good Son a lot. I feel like they're like, haha,
sure.
The Good Son. Like my family does sometimes, and I
sure.
I hate it when they joke about it because I'd be like, that movie ruined my entire life, and like they always would joke about it, and I was like, this movie's not funny. I don't understand. Don't watch it as a kid when your families are blended.
It's a little funny.
Again, context here. The blending of the family thing at a young age, and you're just like, I don't understand any of this.
This would be not the movie to watch when you are going to have a blended family or you're like introducing yourself to like other parts of the family. This is not that kind of movie.
Like, my brother, not violent, but like a little. Like a lot of behavioral issues. So I was also like, and then it was terrible. It's like, my brother gonna kill me? I don't know. I'm sorry.
God.
This is like so fucked up. I'm so sorry.
No, it's real.
It's not funny, but it's like kind of funny when I think back on it. Like I was so full of anxiety as a child. And I still am, but like I know what it is now. Not like as a kid, I was like obsessed, and like my brother was gonna kill me in my sleep because I was the new kid in the house too. And I was just like, God. And he never ever expressed that kind of violence towards me. Like I never actually felt unsafe, like for the most part, but I was like, oh my God, he's gonna fucking kill me.
God.
He didn't, obviously. We are close now. But yeah, that movie has a number on you as a child when you're blending families, and you're like, who are you? Like I'm used to just me and my mom against the world, and now there's two men.
The other thing that I realize is that this is definitely an early 90s movie because the parents are so lax.
Oh my God. The kids are just out running around.
Babysit yourselves when they go out to dinner? And I'm like, you let that kid babysit? Like, well, first of all, how did y'all not fucking kind of see some red flags here?
I know.
I feel like he's not trying to hide it. It's not like a secret.
Is not. He has a fucking crossbow that shoots nails. Like, you don't just, like, have that.
Yeah, like, how do parents... Yeah. And they, like, never go to his secret shed? Like, they don't...
Where they just find the ducky and all of a sudden everything clicks? Like,
I know. Oh, man.
But this is definitely of that time because, like, I grew up in the 80s and I lived in Alaska. And when I lived in Alaska, I would leave the house on the weekends at I don't know, 11 o'clock. And I would be out and about doing who knows what until dinner time. And I'd come home. And I'm talking about in Alaska where like the woods behind my house had moose, had bears, had all sorts of dangerous animals. And I'm just a 7-8-year-old just running through the woods. No care in the world. That's the way it was back then. But this movie brought me back like, this is very lax parenting going on right now. This would not fly today. This movie would be unbelievable today because I think parents are a little bit more helicoptery in a lot of regards. But
absolutely, yeah.
Babysit yourselves.
Yeah, right. The other thing is like there's a well in the cemetery. I'm sorry. There's a well with drinking water in the cemetery.
Oh, ew! Wait, was that a cemetery?
I didn't connect that people would like took anything out of there.
Right.
Well, I mean, maybe they don't anymore, but that's why you have a well, and that's why there's water in it, and it's in a fucking cemetery. That's gross.
It's disgusting.
That is what I immediately was like, why is there a well in a cemetery?
Because it's spooky.
Because what came first? Did they find water after they buried these bodies? Like, this sounds like a great place. Or did they go, we're going to start burying bodies around this well? Like, either way.
It clearly made notes that, like, also that tree fort that he has, that fucking
health code violation.
Just everything where you're like, why is this? Don't the parents know that, like, he climbs up, like, a 50-foot tree to, like, hang out? Like, none of this is safe. This is so fucking... But of course,
look, tree houses are always where the bad shit happens, too, because we had a tree house. And when I was well, not in a tree, it was like a fort that we built. There's no fucking way to really put a tree house in a fucking tree. Like, come on now, guys. There is no, like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But, like, people, even when I was growing up, parents did not check what was going on in that tree house, and they should have. We weren't killing anything, but, like, good God.
Yeah, it's a weird secret hideaway that just parents never, They're like,
there's nothing going on up there, and you're like, yeah, there is. God, we're just idiots. Like, why are you letting us have our own private space out of the house?
So funny. My favorite moment in the treehouse, I'm dying laughing after this, was Elijah Wood's character, Mark, that was his name, Mark, kind of, taunts Macaulay Culkin about how Macaulay's mom is really his mom and blah, blah, blah. And then he starts to go down the tree and Macaulay Culkin goes, hey, Mark. Mark looks up at him and he goes, don't fuck with me. 10-year-old Macaulay Culkin, oh my God. It was so good. I was dying laughing. I was like, no way. How is this not talked about more? To me, I'm like, that should be just as iconic as like him slapping his cheeks in the mirror in Home Alone when he's putting the aftershave on. Like Macaulay Culkin just going, don't fuck with me. I'm like, that is the funniest thing I've ever seen. It was the best thing ever.
And you know that he was just relishing being able to say a curse word because I remember as a kid, I did a little bit of acting, and I remember as a kid trying out for this play, and the line was, nice. My sister's not nice. She is a bitch, and being so excited that I was going to audition and that was going to be the line I was going to say. And so that I think he was like 12 years old at the time, maybe 13. He was just relishing being able to say fuck on the screen.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And what a good casting choice to have him after Home Alone of being, sort of America's sweetheart, playing into that with the cherubic eyes, and he's so adorable and so beloved, and to be like this bad seed character.
Perfect character.
He's so good. Like, especially when he comes down for the first time and he has the mask on. He's like, hello! Yes. And then Macaulay Culkin is really talented. Like, the way he's able to, like, command a presence at that age is insane. Like, how good he is at that and how good he plays Psycho as, like, a creepy kid.
It was brilliant. It was incredible. I couldn't look away. I was like, this is so, no matter how cheesy it got or whatever, I was like, And also
Yeah.
Elijah Wood was acting his ass off for a kid, but like Macaulay Culkin as a villain, just to be like as dark and fucked up as he was incredible. He really like actually brought that character fully to life. And that was another thing that I think as a kid watching that movie, being a huge Home Alone fan and knowing Macaulay Culkin as Macaulay Culkin, and I think a lot of kids looked at him as sort of like their friend. You know, I feel like I felt that way of like that's my, like, that could be a friend of mine, you know, like he's so cool. He like does all the cool pranks in the house. And then to see him be this villain that's like a very dark villain, I think that like was very hard to watch. I think it was very fucked up.
And like, not act like Kevin McAllister was a little fucking sociopath with all that shit that he made in his house, though. Like, let's be real. Yeah, he was fighting bad guys, but that fucking kid was a little bit of a psycho.
That kid was for sure a problem child. Like, also though, you know what?
They're not that far removed from one another. Let's be real.
They're not. Honestly, they're kind of like, it's like kind of weirdly they're spiritual characters, but like,
yes,
you know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, are they the same person? But what? This is like a different universe. Because rewatching Home Alone, by the way, Kevin McAllister had a terrible family. The kid was neglected. Like, the kid was like shit. Everyone was so hard on it. Kevin wasn't that big of a pain in the ass. He was just a kid. And the parents and the uncles and the aunt, I was like, it's pretty disturbing to watch, I gotta say. Different movie, but Jesus Christ.
No, exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But like, this movie hit something for me that I think was just like me as a kid in this time period. Because do you remember the movie Stepmom? It's different, but
why do I remember that movie?
Julia Roberts and Susan Sarandon. And Susan Sarandon plays the mom of a family. Like, she gets divorced from her husband. Julia Roberts is the new mom. Susan Sarandon gets cancer, and they have to learn how to like work together to like cherish their family's moments together while she's still alive. And it's like the saddest shit I've ever seen. Like, it's like a heartbreaking movie. But, like, this is another movie that came out in this time of change and transition for me as a child in terms of coming together as families. And I think my dad got remarried or met a new person at this time. And, like, I was at this age where everyone was just, like, things were changing. And I was like, death, step-parents, families coming together. Oh, my God, it's only going to end in disaster. So that...
Oh, no.
Stepmom and Good Son are very different movies, but just like the titles were so similar in my head that like I associated them with one another. And of just like the experience of just families going through horrific shit. So
also that movie was directed by Chris Columbus, who directed Home Alone.
Oh, wow. Weirdly coming together, yes.
Weird.
Wow.
Okay, there's two things I wanted to mention. Okay. One is Chekhov's cliff.
Oh, yeah, of course. The fucking mom in her blue dress standing on the cliff contemplating
standing
her
on
dead
the cliff
son.
the entire time. I was like, you know that's where the dramatic moment is going to happen because I was like, there's Chekhov's cliff, and that made me kind of laugh. And then the other one is that for some reason I kept staring at the mom. Who's played by Wendy Crewson, and I kept thinking, why does she look familiar? And this is such a small moment, a small thing, but it was bothering me to the point that I realized she has, I think her name is Carla Gugino. She has her eyes, and I kept thinking that it was Carla Gugino because her eyes have the same look, and it's just a small thing, but it was bothering me the entire movie because I was like, why does she look so familiar? And I kept looking up the movies that she was in.
Is she related?
And she has
no,
Carla's eyes.
They're not.
I don't think so.
Okay. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. That cliff, talk about like all the writery stuff that was in the movie. That right there, I was like, oh my God, this is so well. And also the parallel of Elijah Wood likes to go into the middle of the desert and just stand on a rock and look out and contemplate. And then so does she. Like, it's
desert and water, and,
so cheesy. God.
But speaking of the desert, the last scene of the movie. Oh. Henry is gone, and the rest of us are safe. But sometimes, late at night, I find myself thinking, not about Henry, and not about but about Susan, and wondering, if she had to do it all over again, would she make the same choice? I guess I'll always wonder, but I know I'll never ask. And I kept thinking, Pepperidge Farm remembers. That's what I kept thinking. Because it was like... It's an old man looking back at his life, and this kid is, 9, 10, or whatever, 13 maybe, and looking back at his life as if his life is over, and I will always remember.
I can't believe that was never like it's just those choices in the movie where you're like, nobody said don't do that. Nobody. Everyone said, okay, let's print it and get it out there. Like, I couldn't. That when he was doing the dialogue, it was one of those moments where it was just like, is this happening right now? Oh my God. And then it cuts to credits and you're like, that you can't end the movie that way. You can't do that.
I know. I was dying. I was like, wait, they really did just end on like a crane shot of them like on the cliff together with a fucking voiceover from Elijah Wood about his dead cousin.
Yes.
Did she adopt him after that? Like, what's the aftermath? And this is why I can't watch these movies, because I'm like, do you just move home and like never think about it again? Like, what the fuck does she say? Does she admit that she dropped him? Like, what is that?
Also, this is a 2-week period. This was a period of 2 weeks that this shit went down, because he was gone for 2 weeks in Tokyo. And I mean, not to say that like Macaulay Culkin's character wasn't like, sociopath before, but he went from being like a hidden sociopath to a fucking murderer in a span of 2 weeks. Yeah. But I do like the ending in terms of like the whole, because as you said, Devin, there's a lot of grief in this. There's a lot of guilt in this. And so there's that feeling at the very beginning of the movie that he feels guilty because he said he could, he was going to save his mom. Right. His mom was going to die. Right. And by the end of the movie, he's still feeling that kind of like guilt of like, oh, did she make the right choice? Does she think she made the right choice? And there's a lot of guilt there too. Yeah. So, I mean, it kind of comes around full circle, and it doesn't give you an easy answer, which I appreciate, yeah. But it also is definitely a little ham-fisted.
100%. Yeah. It's like, okay, you really like honed in on your themes, but damn it, did you do it in a cheesy way? It was hardcore.
All right. So you watched this as a kid, terrified you. You watched it now as an adult. Do you still find it scary?
I mean, no.
Or affecting?
No. I mean, the amount of laugh. No. I can't. I can't. After this entire conversation and admitting that I can still be scared, this is one that
this ain't it.
This ain't doing it. It did. Like, there were scenes where I was like, okay, I feel unsettled, and I feel like I think it's accomplishing like that in the sense where I'm like, okay, this is unsettling. I don't feel good. I feel like I'm on the edge of my seat a little bit. And then I feel like maybe it's like a 70-30 split where 70% of it, you're just like, what? Why? Really? Ha ha ha. And then you're like, ooh, that's fucking dark. So yeah, it doesn't scare me. No, it does not.
All right. Well, so on that note, let's give this our ratings out of 5.
Yes.
Terry, starting with you. How many Mr. Highways out of 5 do you give The Good Son? Yeah, I know.
Okay, so I actually had a lot of fun watching this movie as an adult, but I have a very sick sense of humor. I found it incredibly funny. I know, Mary Beth, that you're like, how can you find this funny? I found it incredibly funny. I found it very darkly comedic. I did think there are some elements of it that are like a little on the nose or a little like poorly executed in terms of, I don't know what happened in the editing room, just the choices that were made. I'm like, I don't understand, but I had a lot of fun watching this. I don't think it's the best movie. But I enjoyed it. So I have to give it, I think, 3 Mr. Highwaymen that causes what would that, a 30 car pile of them, I guess.
10. Oh yeah, sorry.
Well,
good,
right,
sorry.
Times 3.
Me.
Yep.
Times 3. So I'm going to give it 3. I had a lot of fun, and this conversation was great. So 3 for me. What about you, Mary?
I got to give it 2. This movie is not fun for me. And like, obviously it's a very contextual situation with me.
Well, absolutely.
So obviously everyone take that with a grain of salt, but watching it again, definitely way more cheesy, melodramatic than I remember it being as a child. It still makes me nauseous. So I guess good for them for still being able to elicit that kind of emotional reaction from me. But I'm glad to chat about it. It makes me uncomfortable. And even more so now that it's like kind of cheesy and funny, it's even weirder in my head. So it's gonna just have to be a 2 from me on that one. But Devin, you have the final word. How many Mr. Highways out of 5 do you give this one?
This movie Like I said before, having suggested it, I had no idea how it was going to hold up. All I remembered from it was this deep feeling of sadness and that final scene, which I knew was fucked up. So in my, coming back to it and seeing what it actually is, for what it is, I thought it was going to be, it is really funny. It is really darkly comedic. I agree with you, Terry. And I think but it also hit certain notes really well that it surprised me how certain things actually held up, that I have to give it 3 Mr. Highways out of 5. I got to give it some credit.
All right. Well, thank you, Devin, so much for joining us to talk about The Good Son. Where can our listeners find you, and what do you have coming up that you can share and plug?
Listeners can find me on social media, on Instagram and Twitter at Devin P. Doss. And then what I have coming up, June 7th, Keeping Company, available to rent or own on video on demand, which, your Apple TVs, your Amazon Primes, Vudu, Microsoft, all that good stuff. And then I have a comedy, Wes Schlagenhoff is Dying, that will be world premiering at Tribeca on June 9th. And it will also be available through Tribeca for virtual screening starting June 11th. Good. So people at home, if you want to attend virtually and watch the movie, check it out. And once we know what's going on distribution-wise there, that'll be down the road. But yeah.
Hell yeah.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Of course.
Of course. This is the best.
Listeners, you've heard from us. We want to hear from you. What was your experience with The Good Son? I would love to hear it.
We've had a very difference of opinions. So.
A range of experiences emotionally with this one. But you can send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm McGailey Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please stay safe out there. But most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together, we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.